Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, T.Dot. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please, big ask from anyone who's watching this video. I checked the analytics the other day that I think we said 80% of you are not subscribed to this channel. 80% is a massive number. So if you're on this video, you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, just smash the subscribe button before you leave. Like as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And we appreciate that 100%. So please, if you can do that, appreciate it. But let's get into the content, because although the season's finished, there's still a lot to talk about as a Chelsea fan. The first one we're going to talk about is Todd Boehly and Clear Lake. The whole takeover situation seems to be coming to an end now. We're almost at the finish line. Company's House look like they registered the license. The documentation is already there, up and running. So I think it is just a case of Chelsea confirming on the official website that the takeover has been completed. The green light's been given by the UK government. I think the Portuguese government have potentially done the same already. If they haven't, they're in the process of doing that. So we've got a lot to look forward to. There has been rumours going around on social media that Todd Boehly's already put aside £200 million after player sales for new signings, which I'm not really that concerned about. I think for what we need, with some of the players that we can potentially get on a free transfer as well, 200 million is probably the right amount of money we need to the whole squad doesn't need reshaping and rebuilding. It's just little pockets of issues. So, we talk about the defense. Of course, we know about Alonso, who potentially is leaving. Christensen looks like he's on the verge of leaving. Rudiger, unfortunately, left at the last game of the season. He's now no longer a Chelsea player. And Azpilicueta is another one who's potentially leaving. So my main priority as a Chelsea fan is to sort out the defence, bring in a couple of defenders, maybe look at Levi Colwill as well. I think he's already been tapped up by another couple of other Premier League teams. I think Spurs and potentially Leicester, I think, are looking into Colwill. But if my personal opinion, we need to keep him at the squad. There's got obviously a lot of, like we said on this podcast so many times, there's a lot of players that we need to get out of this squad. The likes of Danny Drinkwater, who's just left, I think only yesterday, who put out quite an emotional, heartfelt Instagram post around his 5 years at Chelsea and how it didn't work out for him, which is sometimes it happens with players. They don't fulfill what they expect to fulfill at the club. So it's one of those things. I'm sure we'll see him somewhere else. Another player that left as well was Charlie Masonda, who I think is another player that has got bags of potential. 25 years of age. Another player that's left the club after, I think, 10 years at the club. Wanted to stay at the club, play for the club for free. He offered to play for free at Chelsea after his rehabilitation as well, after his bad injury that he had. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I think, Thomas Tuchel just didn't see him as part of the plans. He's now moved on. I expect hopefully we'll see him in some sort of capacity, maybe in the Premier League, Championship, or across one of the European leagues as well. But definitely for me, Charlie Masonda is a player that we still need to keep an eye on. Unfortunately, he's not a Chelsea player, but he's definitely got bags of talent. So got to look to Charlie Masonda. But big news that kind of came out before the takeover announcement, which is kind of happening, was Jules Koundé was spotted in London. Looks like he's trying to get this move done. He's already told, Sevilla that he doesn't want to play at the club. He wants a move. Sevilla are hoping a deal between the region of 60 and 80 million will be done with a club. Hopefully it's Chelsea. There's been a lot of mixed reaction. We spoke about Jules Koundé some time ago on the podcast, and there was mixed reactions then between myself and Theo. My situation on Koundé is slightly changing. I think now that we know Rudiger's completely gone, he's out of the picture, we might be losing Christensen. Thiago Silva is at the back end of his career in terms of playing time week by week. So Koundé is actually not a bad replacement, I think, in the grand scheme of things. Maybe the price, we could potentially try and get it a bit less. If we can get him for 60 million, I'd be a lot more happy than playing another 20 million for him. But yeah, Koundé for me is a player that, I think He's going to take time to adapt to the Premier League. But I think if he can have someone like Thiago Silva, like I mentioned as well, Trevor Chalobah, we've still got Malang Sarr there as well as backup, and whoever else we might bring in. There's other names that we've been linked with as well, which I'm sure we're going to be linked with all summer in terms of transfers. But for me, Jules Koundé looks like the first maybe one of the first signings under the new ownership at Chelsea. So keep our eyes peeled on that one. But another big name that's been mentioned and has been sort of flirted around with over the last couple of months is Declan Rice, who has rejected another contract at West Ham. I believe he's still got some time left on his current contract, but I think there is the expectation that he is expected to leave this summer. I think in the region of maybe 80 million. I know that West Ham are holding out for 120 plus million for Declan Rice. I think that will be over the odds. If we pay over 100 million for Declan Rice, I don't know. I think it's a bit too much. But if you can get Declan Rice for 80 million, look, he's had a brilliant season over the last 2 seasons for West Ham. I think he's been brilliant. He's been one of their outstanding players. I think a lot of our games season just gone, a lot of the time we've heavily relied on Jorginho, Kante, who, let's face it, one of them looks like they might leave this summer due to the fact that there hasn't been any discussions around contract renewals. There also hasn't been any discussions around selling them, but you would think by now there would be some sort of news coming out to say that they might be staying, or they might be a new deal on the table for either Kante or Jorginho. None of that's happened at the moment, so you'd expect potentially one of them to go. We've still got the likes of Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmore, who will be returning to the club in the next couple of weeks or so for pre-season. There's still a massive question mark about the two of them as well. And Ampadu is another one that we'd expect to come back into the team. Are these going to be the players that Thomas Tuchel's going to give an opportunity to like he did with Ross Barkley, with Ruben Loftus-Cheek last season in pre-season as well? So there's still a lot of massive question marks on some of the players that we've got out on loan. But I think if we can get Declan Rice in with KOUNDE, we're already looking in better shape than we did a couple of days ago. So for me, KOUNDE, Declan Rice is the two top ones that I think we should go for in terms of transfer targets. There is a third one I'm going to talk about shortly, but before I do that, I want to talk about Danny Drinkwater, who is another player who left the club. As I said before, yeah, it didn't work out for Danny Drinkwater. I think he was just, he went to Burnley on loan. I think he ended up at Reading, I think, as well, at the end of the season, or towards the end of the season, and it just didn't work out for him. It's a shame for him because obviously, he came off the back of a good season with Leicester. I do think obviously it was a panic buy maybe for Chelsea. We bought him, I think, close to the end of the transfer window. Big transfer fee coming in, just didn't happen. Massive wages as well. London lifestyle. There's not much to be said here. He's obviously plagued with injuries throughout that 5 years at Chelsea as well. But hopefully he can redeem himself somewhere else and get back into consistently playing football for another club. But another player that I do want to talk about is Dembele from Barcelona. Obviously, the news that's come out today is that Dembele has put his house up for sale in Spain. He's told Barcelona he doesn't want to renew the contract, which is what I heard earlier this week, was that he was going to make a formal decision on where he wanted to go next, or where his intentions were to go next. It looks like it might be Chelsea. And again, I'm on the fence. I mean, I look at Dembele, I look at the fact that he's kind of played this season a lot more than the previous seasons. He's obviously worked with Thomas Tuchel before at Dortmund, so there's a relationship already there. I think he could come in and do a job. My only concern is he's got to stay fully fit, because if he's not fully fit, we may as well keep a Christian Pulisic, we may as well keep a Timo Werner, we may even keep a Hakim Ziyech. But for me, I think Dembele is an upgrade to Pulisic. I think he's someone that offers a lot more going in. He gets a lot more goals. He's definitely more creative as well. And I do think he would help with the assists. Again, with Lukaku, who I think we might keep this season now with the new ownership coming in. Obviously, Haaland's gone to Man City. There's talk before about Lewandowski. Does he come to Chelsea? Harry Kane, we never do business with those lot over there in North. So I think in terms of Dembele, I think it would be a good signing. It's a free signing as well. So for me, it is a good signing, but I think he's got to stay fully fit if we get him. I think if we can bring him in for a free and he stays fully fit, then we've got a really good player. My only massive concern is the injuries, and there has been talk about his sort of lateness turning up to training and things like that. But I think if if Thomas Tuchel can get him fully fit, playing good football, linking up with Lukaku, linking up with the other attacking players in the team, then I don't see why it can't be any worse than what we watched last season with Werner and Pulisic and at times Hakim Ziyech as well. So, you know, for me, we have to see how that one pans out. Obviously, I haven't mentioned Perisic because we spoke about him in a previous video, but I will mention him. If we can get Perisic over the line on a free, 33 years of age, massive backup for Ben Chilwell, especially if Alonso leaves as well. That's another free transfer. So already we're talking about, you know, 4 players that we're bringing in and still keeping within the 200 cap that Todd Boehly sort of alluded to earlier this week. So Neymar's another one that we've been speaking about, but look, Neymar is a flash in the pan footballer. He does a couple of trickeries, scores a couple of good goals. I wouldn't want him anywhere near Chelsea, if I'm honest. I don't think he's the type of player that we need. Massive wages, massive stature in terms of public figure. You know, demands quite a lot, I think, as well. Diva-ish. You know, I just don't want him near the club. So for me, if I had to choose between Dembele and Neymar, I'd take Dembele. Obviously, Declan Rice is another one I've just mentioned, and Jules Koundé as well. Perisic, if we can get him, of course. But let's talk about some of the players that I think might leave in the summer. I'm going to start from front to back. So I'm going to say Kepa potentially is the first one. I think Kepa, me and Theo both said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that Kepa is too good to be a number 2 to Mendy. At times probably played better than Mendy in certain situations. So I think Kepa's probably the one that I can see going. He's definitely redeemed himself. Obviously had a sort of, you know, imbalanced period between Sarri and Lampard, and then Lampard dropping him, bringing in Mendy, which is a good choice at the time. But he's definitely redeemed himself. He obviously came in on big money, I think 76 million or something like that. But he's come in, he's redeemed himself. He's obviously been working hard on the training ground, and he deserves to play a lot more football next season. You know, massive World Cup coming up as well. So I'm sure he's going to want to play a lot more football. So, you know, I think we might see Kepa walk out the club this summer as well. I've spoke about the defenders, so I'll leave them out of it. The only one I really want to talk about is Kante and Jorginho. I think one of them might leave. And again as well, we have to think about Conor Gallagher. I mean, he's had a brilliant season last season, but I think Palace might try and keep him. They might try and put a bid in for him, but there's other clubs I think interested in Conor Gallagher, maybe on loan. I think Everton was one of them that wanted Conor Gallagher on loan, which is a shout that I made when Frank Lampard took the job on as well. But I think if we can retain Conor Gallagher and maybe Billy Gilmore, but I think Billy Gilmore again wants first team football, so it's difficult, then I don't know. But I think in terms of Conor Gallagher, I think he's someone that has the potential to fit into that Chelsea squad. It's just dependent on who we bring in. You know, who do we bring in? The system that we play as well. Thomas Tuchel might have to change the system. So I think that's something that we need to understand who comes in, what the system's going to be, and then maybe that can fit around how Thomas Tuchel wants to play, and does it fit in with Conor Gallagher? If it doesn't, then you would imagine that Conor Gallagher might be going on loan, potentially sell him as well. But we've seen that mistake happen before with Tomori, with Mark Guehi, Livramento. So there's a lot of players that we've sold recently, Tammy Abraham, these players that we should be keeping at the club, and we just let them go and regret it. You know, even going back to Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne. So yeah, there's a lot to think about in terms of players coming in, but a lot to think about as well about players going out. In terms of the front three or the attacking players, I do think we'll lose maybe Timo Werner, maybe even Christian Pulisic. There's been a lot of talk about him on social media and within the media as well. Obviously his dad came out just before the season ended and said that he wasn't really happy with the amount of game time he was getting, but you know, when he's had his opportunities, he hasn't really taken them. And if you go back to the FA Cup, you go back to some of the Champions League games, you go back to the FA Cup games, League Cup games, Premier League games, he just doesn't really take his chances. So he gets the game time, but he doesn't always apply what he needs to do in the game. So of course, you know, that's always going to be a pain as a Chelsea fan to see that, and then to see him come out and say he wants more game time. So I think if we can bring in Dembele, I do think we'll lose someone, whether it's Timo Werner or Hakim Ziyech or Christian Pulisic. But I can't imagine all three of them plus Dembele will stay at the club as well. So it's interesting times as a Chelsea fan. Of course, there's a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks before pre-season starts as well. I'm sure there'll be an announcement with Todd Boehly coming out very, very soon from Chelsea. But this has been T.Dot. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments about the transfer activity that's currently hopefully going to be taking place over the next couple of weeks. Smash the like button. And also make sure you check out Spotify. Search From the Shed End. Episodes are all on there. Go back, relive the whole season if you can bring yourself to do that. But there's a lot of content on there, so make sure you search From the Shed End on Spotify. Make sure you click the subscribe button on there as well. This has been T.Dot from the Shed End. Until next time, stay safe and thank you very much for watching.